In this video, I'd like to help you through our Blackboard activity number 10. There are 6 questions that walk you through doing the unit conversions using either the metric converter or using unit fractions. This comes from section 7.4 of our quantitative reasoning course. And after you watch this video, if you do need further assistance, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to help you and direct you in any way that I can. Let's start with this chart. Many people use a chart, either this chart or a chart similar to this, to convert within the metric system. The reason that this chart works is because our number system is based in tens, and the metric system is based in tens. So to go from one unit to the next, it's either 10, you just go by tens. Let me try to explain that a little more. When we look at decimeter, if we went from a meter to a decimeter, there are 10 decimeters in a meter. There are 10 centimeters in a decimeter, or in other words, that would be 10 times 10 or 100 centimeters in a meter, and so on. But because this is base 10, because the metric system is base 10, all we have to do is move the decimal either left or right. And the key is just understanding when do we go left, when do we go right. Well, it's really easy when we use the chart, because if you go to the right in the chart, then you move the decimal to the right. If you go left in the chart, then you move the decimal to the left. For example, if you want to go from a kiloliter to a decaliter, we're going to move the decimal 1, 2 places to the right. Let me show you what that would look like. 5 kilometers. Let me switch to another color just to make sure that's visible on your screen. But 5 kilometers is going to be, so what I'm thinking here is 2 to the right. So if I move this decimal place 2 to the right, let me write it here with the decimal. If I move this 2 to the right, 1, 2, and place it here, you can see that we would need 2 0 placeholders. So that's 500 decaliters, and so on. This is how you use this chart. Just move to the right or to the left the number of decimal places. Let's practice this. 75 decameters to decimeters. To go from a deca to a deci is 2 hops to the right. So the 75 decameters goes 2 hops, decimal go 2 hops to the right, and I would need to fill in 2 placeholding zeros, so that's 7,500 decimeters. Now if I want to go from a decimeter to a hectometer, it's 1, 2, 3 hops left. From a deci to a hecto is 3 to the left. So if I had this 75 with the decimal after the 5, going 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3 would put it in this position, and it looks like we need to insert a 0 placeholder, so we'd get 0.075, or you could call it 0.075, but that's 75 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it's 75 thousandths of a hectometer. And then this last example, we're going to go from a kilometer to a millimeter. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces to the right. If I move this decimal place, it starts here. If I moved the 6 to the right, 3 and 3 more, then I'd have 75 million millimeters. That's how we use this King Henry chart to simply move the decimal left or right. And again, the reason that we can do this, moving left and right, is because we're using the base 10 number system. Well, let's look at some of the other examples, or rather some of the specific examples on Blackboard Activity 10 Unit Convergence Worksheet with chemistry examples. How many inches are in 45 and 6/10 of a centimeter? Well, I need to think through the unit conversion that I need, and I know that there's 1 inch equivalent to 2.54 centimeters. So I could write that as a fraction 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters. Or I could write that as a fraction 1 inch under 2.54 centimeters. And both of these fractions are called a unit fraction because they're equivalent to 1. Because 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch, writing the 1 inch over or under 2.54 centimeters is equivalent to 1. So the way I'd approach this problem is I'd start with the 45 and 6/10. I'm going to write the unit, centimeter. I'm going to put that over 1. And then I'm going to multiply it by the unit fraction that has the centimeters in the denominator and the inch in the numerator. The reason I chose this one, which is 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters, is because I want the centimeters over centimeters to divide out or to go away so that I'm left with inches. So now all I need to do is pull out a calculator to do that division. Let me show it to you too, just to be sure everyone's good with this. We'd have 45.6 times 1. 45.6 times 1 equals 45.6. 1 times 2.54 is equal to 2.54. And what I would then do with this 45.6 divided by 2.54, because 45.6 over 2.54 is the same as divided by, I am getting 17.95275. It keeps going. Let's round that to the nearest hundredth. To the nearest hundredth, that'd be 17.95. Let's round it to the nearest tenth. If I round that to the nearest tenth, this 5 would make that 9 go up. So this would become a 10, which makes the 17 and 18. So we'd have 18.0. And the final rounding I'll do is if I wanted to round this to the nearest whole, then the 17 would round up to 18. So depending on what the directions ask of you, you should be able to round in any of those different positions. 1.23 times 10 to the negative 6 kilometers into centimeters. Now I could, this is called scientific notation, and this times 10 to the negative 6 is equivalent to 1 over 10 to the 6, or it's equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places. So 100,000th is what that is. But when I want to go from a kilometer to a centimeter and I use the chart, we're going to go kilometers to centimeters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the right. there's a number of ways I could do this. One way I could do this is I take this decimal and go 5 to the right, which would put us right here. So then I'd have 1.23 times 1/10. So that would mean moving that decimal one more time. You could do this on a calculator to get it also, but it would mean moving this decimal, multiplying by 1/10. I'd move this decimal to the left now, so 0.123 centimeters. Let me show you that a few other ways, just to make sure you feel really comfortable with this. What I'm going to do when I want to go from a kilo to a centimeter, I know I've been describing it as moving the decimal to the left or right, but that's the same thing as multiplying by a power of 10. Which power of 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right, and going right is positive, so 10 to the 5th power. So that's where this 1.23 times 10 to the negative 1 comes from, which is equivalent to 0.123. And that's how you'd work this number too. I know that one's a little different with it being in scientific notation. Let's try one that is maybe a little easier to grasp. If we wanted to go from years to hours, we'd have to know a few things. Let's jot down the different unit fractions or conversions we need. We need to know that there's 365 days in a year. We need to know that one day is 24 hours. So to convert this, we'd start with the 34.5. I'm going to keep the unit, year. I'm going to write that unit in over 1. And now I'm going to multiply by 2 unit fractions. The first one, I'm going to want to get rid of this year, so I could go from a year to a day. So it's 1 year under 365 days. And then I need to go from a day, so that the days divide out, the years divided out already, days to hours. 24 hours is equivalent to 1 day. So it looks like what I'm going to do here is I'm going to multiply 34 and 5/10 times 365 times 24. And I know you may be looking at that thinking, well, I didn't really need unit fractions to just understand that that's what I was going to do. And that's okay if you can do this without the unit fractions. However, make sure you can also show how to do this with the unit fraction. So again, even if you could do this without the unit fractions, make sure that you are able to show it without just multiplying, but instead by actually doing the unit fractions work there. Let me check that multiplication one more time. I've got 34.5 times, oh, you know what, I think that didn't look right. As I was looking back, a good problem solving step is to look back, right? I was looking back at that thinking, it seems like it should be more, and it should be. If you did that multiplication in your calculator, you would recognize, wait, that can't be right. And you're right with that answer. I just, what I did was I typed in a plus there instead of times one of them. But the right answer should be 302,220. Let me write that in here. 302,220. Number 4, going from millimeters to inches. I could go from a millimeter to a centimeter, 1 millimeter, oh, other way around, sorry about that, let me write it correctly, 10 millimeters is equivalent to 1 centimeter. Let me show you another way I could do that. If I wanted to go from a centimeter to a millimeter. So if I had 1 centimeter, then to go to millimeters, I'm going to go right 1. So that would mean adding 1 place there. So 1 centimeter is equivalent to 1 or to 10 millimeters. And then I'm also going to need that 2.54 inches is equivalent to 1 centimeter. So to convert this, now I could just go from 355 millimeters. There's 2 ways to do this, and I'm going to go ahead and do it both. If I want to convert this to centimeters, I could just use a chart and say, let me do this in a different color so I'm not confusing anyone with so many different things. I use this nice bright green here. If I'm going to go from a millimeter to a centimeter, I see that that's 1 hop to the left. So 35.5 centimeters. And then I could use that 35.5 centimeters, write it over 1, and that's equivalent to how many inches? Well, I know this conversion that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So if you do the division, 35.5 divided by 2.54, you could get the inches. But that's doing both, converting from millimeters to centimeters using the chart and then using the unit fraction. But I could also have used unit fractions all the way and not used the chart. Let me show you that also. You only need to be able to do this one way or the other, but let me show you both just so that you have this in your back pocket. 355 millimeters over 1 times the unit fraction we do from millimeters to centimeters we have here is 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10 millimeters. And so that would do millimeters over millimeters is gone. And then if I put the centimeters under inches, I could cross out centimeters, and that's 2.54 centimeters, 1 inch. So it's going to be 355 divided by, or over, sorry, I kind of ran out of space here, but I'm going to put it to the left here, 355 over 10 times 2.54. And either way, if you use this orange or this black, you'd get the same answer. You might try it both ways just to show and to verify for yourself that you know how to do it, doing that either way. Well, if we know that there are 1,000 liters in 1 cubic meter, if we're given that, then we can start by saying that 1 cubic meter is this 1,000 liters. We could start with that, and then we could use the King Henry chart. I didn't print the chart here, so let me jot it out. King Henry died, and then here we have our liter, drinking contaminated milk. So if I wanted to go from a liter to a milliliter, it looks like that would be starting here at the liter. It looks like it'd be 1, 2, 3 hops to the right. So if I go 1, 2, 3 to the right, it looks like I'm going to need 3 place holding zeros. Which looks to me like we've got 1 million. I'm not going to write that down here for you, but you should be able to write that from that answer there. Let's look at the last problem. How many miles are in 3.44 times 10 to the 8th inches? If you are given that there are, what is it, 0.61 miles in 1 kilometer, if we use that, let's see what we get here. We'd start with a 3.44 times 10 to the 8th inches, put that over 1, and we can use, what would we need? We've got this 0.61 miles in 1 kilometer. We know that there's 5,280 feet in 1 mile, and we know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So these are the different things we would need to use. Let me show you what we could multiply here. We could go from inches to feet. 12 inches, 1 foot. And that would divide out inches over inches, right? And then next we could maybe do, so we'll say times. We're going to want to divide out feet. We've already got rid of inches over inches. So we could go from a feet to a mile. 1 mile, 5,280 feet. And then last but not least, we've got the, find a color, here's a color that we haven't used yet. We've got a conversion of 0.61 miles to 1 kilometer. Let me just one more time highlight through what it is that we've been able to reduce. We've got inches over inches, feet over feet, miles over miles. So what we're going to be left with is an answer that is kilometers. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why I went to kilometers. We don't have to use that, do we? We could have stopped there with the first two, so we don't actually need this bit here. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why the worksheet gives us that. I guess that we could use that instead of the miles and feet. But that would do it. So we'd do 3.44 times 10 to the 8th, and then divide that by 12 times 5,280. Remembering your order of operations, one way to do this is to multiply the numerator out and then multiply the denominator out and then divide everything. But that should give you the setup to get to the number of miles. I hope that this video was helpful in the case that you wanted a little more guidance with the activity, but please let me know if you need further assistance.